geographically, if you want to say by the street,
East Oakland begins at Park Boulevard.
I would technically say First Avenue.
From like Lake Merritt area.
I am really not sure.
The Oakland version is the other side of the lake, as we like to call it.
So I would say maybe, I don't know, maybe it starts at Fruitvale.
So East Oakland starts just east of 35th Avenue.
The directions always seem so confusing to me.
KALW has been covering East Oakland through our special project, Hey Area East Oakland. That's where listeners send in questions and reporters like me hit the pavement to find answers. One of the most popular questions we've received is, what are the boundaries of East Oakland? As someone originally from East Oakland, I was curious about this myself. I spoke with new and old residents of East Oakland. I even headed downtown to speak with Betty Marvin, the city's historic preservation planner.
Going back to early uses of the phrase East Oakland, like 1890s newspaper ads and things like that, it seems pretty consistently to mean east of Lake Merritt.
I noticed one map on the table that the city currently uses to determine community development grants. West Oakland and North Oakland are marked. There's even a central East Oakland, but East Oakland is not designated on the map. Ms. Betty says the city doesn't have an official position on what exactly constitutes East Oakland. It's the residents who create the dividing lines. Some of that is about property values.
Yeah, real estate, certainly there's a lot of neighborhood creep. The neighborhood names are just sliding down toward the bay in an effort to class it up a little.
And Ms. Betty says when the demographics shift, so do the boundaries.
Psychological connotations of the name East Oakland may change in the future. People may be more eager to be known as being in East Oakland, or they may really want to shed it and get rid of whatever the stereotypes are at that time.
The words East Oakland do come with stereotypes. Like other regions and major cities, East Oakland has its good and bad. For those of us who are from here, live here, East Oakland, with all of its complexities, is home. That's why this question of where exactly is East Oakland is about more than just geography. It's about culture.
I define the culture of East Oakland as a culture of resilience.
I'm in the Fruitvale neighborhood at artist and activist Favianna Rodriguez's home. We're about 2.5 miles east of the lake. She takes me back to the East Oakland I remember in the 80s and 90s.
I grew up at a time when Oakland was a very violent and harsh place. And it was violent and harsh and poor because of inequality. The crack cocaine epidemic was alive here. We had a huge gang problem. I mean, literally people would be getting jumped across the street from my house. And we had a police problem. I mean, we had police brutality that has always been a problem with the town. But we also had, MC Hammer. We had graffiti. We had businesses that were thriving.
Favianna's home is full of her vibrant, colorful paintings. She developed her art skills growing up in East Oakland.
I would go after school to like a mask making class or a screen printing class at the library. And so I know that as a kid, there was people here and there was services and there was a community that cared about me.
Favianna is proud of her Fruitvale roots and recognizes the neighborhood as being part of East Oakland. But not everyone east of the lake feels that way about their neighborhood.
We're in the Diamond District of Oakland.
John Kim is the owner of Nama Japanese Cuisine. The Diamond is a more expensive area of Oakland that doesn't have the same levels of crime or poverty as nearby neighborhoods. Kim says the Diamond District is not East Oakland.
Well, it's not exactly the East Oakland, but sort of like in between East Oakland and I guess the main Oakland.
He says East Oakland starts 6 blocks east of us. That's in the Laurel District. This part of the city definitely looks different from when I was growing up. I see street construction. The grocery store I used to go to with my grandmother is now a gym, but the Ace hardware store is still here. Property values have gone up, which is great for homeowners, but some longtime residents are struggling to pay rising rents, and homeless people are camped out under the freeway.
Now, God, I thank you so much for these men who stand before you, oh God.
A little further east, in the Melrose neighborhood, Reverend Harry Williams prays at Victory Outreach Church.
It's a struggle and a challenge to stand up to be a man of God in these times. Standing before me, I see warriors. I see men of valor.
Reverend Harry, as he prefers to be called, is not the pastor of this church. His church is outside, in the streets. He calls himself a hood preacher because, unlike pastors of some of the bigger Oakland churches, he lives in the community that he serves and engages with everyone, from grannies to gangsters.
The culture of East Oakland is vibrant, it's beautiful, it's glorious. There's a lot of joy. There's such much diversity here in East Oakland. It's a place where there's so much swag, incredible music, just an incredible vibe of brotherhood and sisterhood on the one hand. On the other hand, it can be an incredibly violent place, a place where there's tremendous apathy, especially among the people who really should care about the poor people that live here.
One block up from Reverend Harry's pulpit is a warehouse. It looks unassuming, but inside are live-work studios with all sorts of artists. Gina Goldblatt sublets a small area of the studio to practice a form of acrobatics called silk. She hangs and spins on fabric that looks like two silk ribbons hanging from the ceiling. I nervously watch her dance in the air. After her practice, Gina takes me to the loft where she lives, 2 miles north of here in the Allendale neighborhood. Many of the residents there are people of color. Gina is white and grew up in a New York suburb. After graduating from Mills College and living in North Oakland, she moved to East Oakland 3 years ago. She works multiple jobs to pay the rent, while she sees newer residents moving in with more money. She says the energy is changing in the neighborhood.
You can feel this tension of different incomes, different lifestyles, different approaches to just being in a neighborhood. Because I found that the people that have lived here for a while, they're like, this is my neighborhood. They say hello to you. They're like, how are you doing? Even if we're not friends, it's you acknowledge each other. We live in the same vicinity. And a lot of people that are really new to the neighborhood kind of just have a different air about them.
Gina's home also serves as a feminist and womanist writing center called Liminal. Her literary events draw a diverse crowd, but she also wants to use Liminal as a bridge for old and new Oakland to communicate.
Having this space, I am willing to hold space for people to have dialogues. What I really want this space to be, there isn't a word for, but saying that it's feminist and womanist at least opens the conversation to say we're centering women and people that are gender nonconforming, and looking at intersections of race, of sexuality, of class, all the that people are uncomfortable talking about, but that inevitably comes out whenever you write your own stories.
It's time for this story to go deep. The question remains about the boundaries of East Oakland, but there's a term that's become more common for one area of East Oakland. It's called Deep East Oakland.
Deep East Oakland, where that boundary is debatable, but anything after High Street to the San Leandro border.
Candice Elder is the founder and executive director of East Oakland Collective. The grassroots organization does racial and economic equity work in Deep East Oakland. She's an East Oakland native. Candice is right that people debate the boundaries, but for her organization, she says what makes up the Deep East boils down to resources.
Drive down International all the way to the San Leandro border, which is about 108th, 109th Avenue, and you see the businesses starts changing. You see more vacant lots. You'll see more vacant businesses. You'll see the street infrastructure is not kept up. But East Oakland is starting to become gentrified. It's now the hot spot, the place to live. Where before they were scared of East Oakland. Now everyone wants to be in East Oakland. So that's part of the reason why the East Oakland Collective was founded, was to get ahead of gentrification and stop the further displacement of Black people, from Deep East Oakland, and then also preserve the culture and the rich history of Deep East Oakland and Greater East Oakland.
Look up from the flatlands of deep East Oakland and you can see the Oakland Hills. East Oakland is usually associated with the flatlands, not the higher income population up there. Back in downtown, Betty, Marvin, and I look at a map. I ask her if the hills are part of East Oakland.
They're the absolutely farthest east.
Ah. So are the hills deep east? I'm not gonna
The deepest east.
Wow, isn't that something? Geographically, Miss Betty says the hills are the deepest east. I learned something new, but that still doesn't solve the big question. So what's the answer? Where is East Oakland?
Well, there's no one answer, there's no right answer. It's in Oakland and it's somewhere east of something, but east of what?
And there you have it. I was not expecting that answer. I'm going to stick with east of Lake Merritt. If East Oakland is defined by the people who live here and the social and economic issues going on at the time, instead of the actual physical area, then who knows where the boundaries will be pushed in the future. In East Oakland, I'm Jenee Darden for KALW.
They come from Oakland, Killer, Cali, the home of pips and rallies, the place where you
Culture of East Oakland.
And it brings a smile to my face.
I love the skater bike team.
I love the cultural activities. I love plays. I love movies. I love the book readings.
We're hypey. For that for a fact.
It's debatable whether or not we want to preserve sideshows, but sideshows are part of East Oakland culture.
Everybody dances. They like to have a good time.
Like gunpowder, anything can happen at any given time. You're never gonna know what you're gonna see.
There's a lot of diversity in the culture. So much diversity in the culture.
We're proud. We're proud of where our roots come from.
And I would say that it's a fabulous place if you wanted to visit, just to see what Oakland truly is.
Magnificent. I love East Oakland.